Hello, my name is Eduardo and today I am here with another tutorial for App Inventor. Well guys, today in the last tutorial we just finished, okay, until we got something like more or less like this, okay. Just let me enable the clock. So it was just in the previous video we have something like that, okay. So just the moving enemies, and that's it. Well, for today we are going to work a little bit to improve the movements of the enemies, and also to change well, to add here the ship and to start moving the ship because it is already there, okay. So well, I have for you this working file and I will collect, okay, for the tutorial 2. So it will be like say working file ship tutorial 2, okay. So this is the starting file, okay, in order for you to follow my steps in this video, okay. So let's just create this thing, and we have this, okay. So and then I'm going to return to the previous one just for you to keep this thing like clean, okay. So and then you are going to fix the things that I will fix, okay. So well, let's return to the original. Now today we're using some different things, some different stuff. So for example, we have the canvas. Now I am using something that it's pretty useful for you that I haven't used, okay. We are going to go to screen, in screen number 1. If you have multiple screens, screen number 1, you go to screen, then you click on there, and then you go to sizing. We're going to use today responsive, not fixed. Responsive, that means that it will respond to the device that is using, okay. So trying to adjust to the size of the screen of the other device, okay. So with fixed, we set the values in pixels when we use fixed. With responsive, we have to set everything based on %, okay. If you check, I have done for you most of these things. For example, the height of the empty image, it is 14%. Then you just have to adjust everything, okay. So now, for example, the canvas container, it is 40% high and 80% width. This is almost the same, okay. So in this case, this is 39 and this is 84, and then you have this these things in the canvas, and you have the ship that it's not visible right now because the value it is in here. So maybe you have to set it to 200. But anyway, this is the file you have right now, okay. So we're going to start. We have to improve many things, okay. So 150. Also we have to set for these boundaries, okay, where one is set to 0, I mean, and the other has to be at the corner the edge, in this edge, okay. So basically you can set it. If the canvas here, it is almost like we have to go here, we have to check the value of the canvas. In this case, the width of the canvas and it's 302, so we have to move it over there to 302. So this is for boundary 2, x 302, or maybe 300 or 298, just to have to push it a little bit to him to the side. And then you see if it has collision over there because it is helping us, okay. So remember, check the tutorial number 1, okay. And also guys, before we continue, thank you for watching this. If you are watching this, that means that you watch the video number 1 and that you have already that you are paying for this thing. If you check, they are going almost to the boundaries. So also for these images, well, we said in this case we need to say in canvas we just can use pixels. Okay, so I will just make them 30 pixels and the other one 30 pixels. I am just trying to fix the collision over there, just to have them over here and then return. Well guys, today we have many things to do about the ships. Okay, so let's just try to be organized because sometimes I just get messy. So now for today we're going to improve the movement of the ship. Now if you check the ship, when it touches in here it moves like down, goes down. But I discovered something. The ship, it is like detecting 3 collisions. I mean, not the ship, the enemies are making 3 collisions at the same time. So that means that if you said, you know, I want you to get down when you collide with this sprite by 1 pixel, so it will move. Okay, it will move like 3 pixels because it is detecting 3 collisions, 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 3 pixels. So that's why it gets quite like that. And there is another problem. When we if we have more, we have to eliminate. When we destroy these enemies, we have to eliminate these enemies. Okay, so from the database. So now if you check, it was touching in here, so that's not good. So that's why we need to adjust the this kind of check. In this case it is going to the left a lot, and in this part let me see, it's not. So let's keep this thing to 10, and for the second boundary let's set it, let's move it to the left. Okay, so that means like 280. Also check your canvas container is center, so no problem. You know what? Maybe I don't like the size of my canvas in the height. I'm going to set it to 37. Okay, so change that if you want. I want this app to have more like a retro look. And this thing, I will just move it just to 13%. This empty image, remember, is just like pushing the canvas down. So I'm just trying to adjust this. Maybe that's okay. For the canvas, let's say the width to 82%. So remember, this image that we have for the background, it is this thing. It has also it has like a background over there for black color or something, just to have like this kind of borders. Okay, so now for the canvas, maybe the height 35% will be perfect. Sorry to take some time in this kind of design, but I don't want you to get bored with this stuff, but it is important, okay, just to have nice look in this thing. So I guess that's okay. Maybe just to push this thing to 12%, maybe it's too much, I don't know. Just let's wait. Well, as I told you, we have to continue with the movement of the ships, okay? So I've been working a lot with this stuff, okay? And yes, sometimes it was like, this tutorial has been really hard for me. I have learned a lot, okay, and I have suffered more, but well, it's pretty interesting. So now what about if for the height again, now 36, just to see if we can have the same space. If not, we'll return this to 35. Okay, and we are almost done now. 36, so let's keep it in 35. Sorry, I like more 35. So 35 times 82, canvas it is 40 and 85. Okay, and everything is like center, so we have this beautiful screen, and maybe we just push this ship a little bit down, so we increase the value, so maybe by 180. And that's it. Yeah, maybe the over there it's okay, or 200, and we are almost done. Okay, I like it. Now we have the clock for these ships. Okay, so we have to rename this because if not it's confusing. So rename clock number 1, and let's rename it. Okay, and let's call it ships, not ships, enemies clock, enemy clock, or enemies clock. So that's it, enemies clock. And we're going to disable this thing. It is set to 500. That's okay, I really like it. Now what else? We have this enemies clock, and we're going to add a second clock. We'll go to sensors, we're going to drag it, and then we're going to, oh, I'm having problems with companion today. Well, we're going to rename this thing, and we're going to call it, okay, enemies move enemy, move enemies. What is enemy clock 2? Enemies clock 2. Yes, better. We're going to disable, and we're going to set it to 0. Okay, so don't worry about this. Okay, so I will start again companion, just give a second. Then we go here, and don't pay attention to this. It was something that I was planning, but you know what, I didn't wanted to make you bored, because sometimes this stuff is not very interesting. Just something to keep in mind when we are working with responsive. We have some different values for the screen. Okay, so that's just to keep in mind. So now the screen, sorry, it's not connected, but it's 640 320. Okay, just when you are like using this kind of value, 360, yes, 360 is. Well, now if you remember, we have these things that it's creating the enemies. First, the first row of enemies is created, second row of enemies is created, and then we have the third line, and then we just group all of these things in one list. Okay, that is the super list. Now my recommendation now, it is just to empty the other lists. I don't know if this is going to help App Inventor, okay, because we are like handling lots of enemies or sprites, so I think that it's quite useful. After you do this, okay, so you have the super enemies. Okay, so now it is time to empty the list where we copy everything. So for example, we have the list that is this one, and we are going to empty the list. Then we just Control C, we go to the list number 2, we are going to empty the list, and then we go to the list number 3 and we empty the list. Okay, then we are going to get a new variable just to know how many enemies do we have in the screen. Okay, we are going to call it counter enemies, and we are going to set this variable to the length of the list. Which list? The new super list. So super list, and we're going to check how many enemies do we have in this list. Okay, so what we have over there, counter, this cannot be, yes, why not? Ah, no, because it is in counter enemy, sorry. So first you set it to 0. Okay, because we initialize the variable, and then, okay, we are going to set after we kill these old lists, we get the list with the new, with the super list, the length of the super list. So the counter enemy. That's it. Okay. Now, what is the next thing? We need to work with the movement of the enemies. So we know that when the enemies move or collide, okay, when the enemies collide with the boundaries, or to the left, to the right, they are moving, okay, based on a heading. Okay, so if they collide with the boundary number 1, the heading is 5. Okay, so boundary 1 is on the left, so it will increase these values in x. Okay, so now we are going to modify a little bit this thing to make it not so slow sometimes. Okay, and I guess it works a little bit. So now let's go here to companion to see if companion is in a good mood. Okay, then we set this to y w a e h a. That's it. Now, what is the thing? I added a second clock because I want to do this. So I want to, when you collide, when the enemies collide, I want to yes, to check the collision. We check the collision, then we change the heading, and then we are going to remove this block that it's moving the enemies. Okay, and instead of this, I'm going to go to, remember that the clock, it will be like enable, tick 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 tick. I'm going to disable this clock just for a second. The enemy's clock 1. I'm going to disable this clock. Oh, sorry, not this one, because remember, enemy's clock is doing this. So I'm going to disable the clock for a moment. So we go to clock, disable, to false. So I'm going to disable the clock, and I'm going to enable the new clock that is set to 0 in the interval. Duplicate this one, rename this to enemy's clock 2, and we enable this clock. When we collide, we disable the movement of the enemies for a second, and then we go to the second clock. Okay, so we are going to do the same for second collision, then I will explain you that. Okay, so now we just duplicating this, we disable the clock 1 and we enable clock 2. Clock 2 will have all the blocks, okay, for the movements. So now let's go to clock number 1. So what is going to happen in clock number 1? So clock number 1, it is moving, okay, moving the things. So but we want to make something different with that. So we have to check the clock, the new clock. Let's move this up, and we go for clock number 2. Sorry, and we are going to drag here. what happens when the enemy clock is activated? Well, we're going to drag this guy, and now we are going to this is for Y, right? So we're going to change this for X, and we're going to change this for X. We're recycling blocks, guys. Check. We have that enemy clock 2, it is activated. So when we activate this clock, we're going to change the position plus the current position plus the heading. Duplicate this one and we're going to drag it over there. That's it. Now the enemy's clock, now it will be like will be when we activate this clock, the enemy's clock. Let's just remove this because if not we get confused. We are going to play the sound, yes, and when we activate this, we are going to disable this one. Enemy clock. We are going to go here, timing enable to false, and then we are going to activate the other one to true, the enemy clock to 2, and that's it. What happens? Okay, well, let's see what happens right now. Let me check here. Well, we have enemy clock disabled when we start the game. So what if we activate the game when we touch, for example, the canvas? So well, to do that, the canvas 2, that is the canvas control, we're going to check in here and we are going to use touch. We're going to use it to move for moving this thing, but in this case, just to start the game, we're going to use this and we're going to create a variable just to start the game, and we're going to call it today game over. So is it game over? When we start the game, game over is true. Sorry, because we haven't because the game is in over, so it's not moving. So now we need to detect if the game over it is in true, so that means that we are going to activate the game. Okay, so in that case we're gonna go in here and we're going to go to the clock 1 and we're going to activate it when we touch the pad. Then we can pass this to a button. Maybe we create a start button. So now when we touch, if this is true, set enemies timing enable to true. Okay, and also we are going to change the variable now to false because the game now is not in over. So now let's see, we touch in here and we have movement and it's moving nicely there. Okay, now enemies are moving. So well, let's check it again. What is happening? I activated the clock. When I activated the clock, this clock gets deactivated again immediately, and then activates the clock 2, okay, before it gets like down, and then this clock 2, it is the one that it's moving based on the heading. Remember that if we collide with the blocks, the boundaries, okay, we're going to change these values, and it's like having like a loop. So enemies clock pass to enemies 2, okay, and I guess it moves better, okay, less slow than before. So now also you can change the speed, okay, so based on the heading and also the clock. Okay, so if you change the clock, so it will be like slower or not. Okay, So now I guess that's okay. So then we have here we can change this to, if we change this to 1000, that it's 1 second, it will move like 1 second, okay, 5 pixels just by 1 second, every 1 second. Well, I guess. Well, no, because it's doing the other thing. Okay, so we need to change the other clock, okay, the one that I set to 0. So let's change that thing. Let's change this to 1000. And sorry if I have problems with companion, I guess it will have an error. Well, we're going to continue with companion in some seconds. And now if you check, we have the movement. Then we will fix the speed and this thing, okay, so don't worry about this. Let's reset the connection and that's it. So now what we need now, it is to push the enemies down, okay, every time we have this kind of collision with the boundaries, okay. Well, if we do it like that inside this procedure, inside this block, it will do it by 3 times, because it is like detecting 3 collisions at the same time. So we don't want to have 3 collisions, okay, or 3. For example, if I set this to 1, it will push everything. If we have the 3 collisions, it will push them down by 3, okay, so we don't want that. So we're going to create a second clock or a third clock, and we're going to disable this clock, and maybe we're going to set it to 0, and then we just modify values. And this clock we're going to rename down enemy clock. So we have the down enemies clock. So now for the down enemies clock, we're going to do something here. We're going to go to down enemies clock. It is disabled at the beginning, and it will be like trigger or activated when we have a collision. So we're going to set this thing, instead of this one, the one that I was using here, because it's not necessary, we're going to change this to enemies clock, down enemies clock. Then we see the modifications. So we're going to activate this clock every time we have a collision. But what it's going to do? Well, we're going to use the for each. We're going to call this enemy for every enemy. Then we're going to drag this thing, duplicate, then we're going to go for the super list for all the enemies in the super list. Okay, we want to change the Y position. Any sprite, go to the button, remember, any sprite, then look for Y position. We're going to modify this Y position. Okay, so now let's say that the Y position, so we insert here in component enemy, then we're going to increase this, the original position, okay, plus, we just duplicate again the enemy, okay, plus now based on the height of the enemies, so we use height, but we're going to use the percentage. Okay, so based on the percentage of the image, So for example, I want to move down based on the high, so maybe the 0.5, it is like the 50% of the image, the height of the image, it will move down. Okay, so now let's try to activate this friend, this crazy friend. Maybe it's the connection. I don't have, maybe there is something wrong with my internet. Well, anyway, so let's continue and let's just add here OPZGKE. That's it. Okay, so let's wait for this thing and let's see what happens. Well, remember here I just disable this thing. I change the enemy clock because enemy clock, it is enabling this thing. Enemy clock. Let's touch, and we have the movement, so we can change the enemy clock to 0, and then we see. Okay, let's see what happens. Change. So yes, when we have it in 0, it's moving over there. Sorry. So let's set it to 100. No, 1000. And the other clock, the enemy clock, it is 1000. So we have 1000, 1000. Okay. I guess we are okay. Right now it's moving over there. And then check what happens. Right now it's going down because we are not disabling this clock. So we need to disable this clock. So what happens when we have this kind of moving? When we're moving the sprites down, we want to first move the everything down. Okay, so that's why we disable this enemy's clock. So and then we are going to re-enable this false, and we're going to make this enemies true. So let's see what happens. We refresh the screen. 222, I mean, and then let's see if this is behaving the way we want. Let's move. Collision, down, collision, down, collision, down. Now we need to check this thing. Check when the enemy's clock start, this is disabled, and activates the other one, the enemy's clock 2. The enemy's clock 2 waits for a second and then moves everything by 1 pixel, by 5 pixels, okay, based on the heading. Okay, so that's why we need to adjust this one. So I guess we need to disable this guy, duplicate. Yes, these are just some adjustments. And enemy clock 1, we are going to enable this just to give control to enemy clock 1. Okay, so let's keep this in true and let's keep this in false. So this is just doing the loop and then just being disabled. So now if I set the enemy's clock to 0, now it is not like affecting the speed. Now the speed is controlled by enemy's clock 1. So that's what we want. So let's touch Yes, okay. Now it looks better, it sounds now, and now who is controlling everything? It is clock number 1. So the speed is controlled with clock number 1. And this clock number 2, it is just moving and getting disactivated, okay? Deactivated. And that's it, disactivated, and then activates again this one that it's going to make again this kind of loop thing, okay? So, and I guess that's the way we fix the movement of these beautiful ships, okay? So now, what's next? I guess for the enemy it's okay, and we can start like adding more interesting stuff. So for example, if we have now the enemies moving, now we need to set these beautiful things, okay? But before that, you know what, I'm going to show you how to make the game more interesting, because right now it's quite boring like that, because it's pretty slow. So we are going to use this boundary stuff. So we want to change the speed of the enemies little by little. So we're going to check in the down this clock that is getting down everything. So, and we are going to create a new variable, and we are going to call it bounce counter. It's going to count the times where we are touching this 1, 2, 3, 4, and that way we can control the speed every time we touch the edges. Okay, so we are going to set it to 0. Oh, sorry, to 0. So when we start the game, it is in 0, and every time we have this kind of movement down, we are going to increase this variable by 1 plus 1. So the same variable plus 1. Bounce counter. Now we need to add the conditions. We are going to add some else conditions. Else if, else if, else if, I guess with 4, 3, 4, maybe 5 conditions. So we're going to check if this value, duplicate this, if this value it equals to 2. Remember that the initial speed it is just like 1000 in the clock. So what happens with this? Well, we're going to change to the enemy clock. Oh, sorry, enemy clock interval. We're going to go here, enemy clock interval, and we're going to set the enemy's clock interval. If the original was 1000, now we want to speed it up the things, okay? So, or speed the things up, sorry. We will increase this or reduce the interval. If the interval is smaller, so that means that, the interval, the ship will be like fast. So now let's duplicate this one. Let's paste it over there. You can duplicate over there, or just Control C, Control V, and that's it. We paste these conditions just to affect the speed, and that's it. Okay, so we just remove this, and now we are going to duplicate the conditions. Duplicate, or Control C, V, Control V, V, V. Oh, companion getting crazy. That's perfect. Well, we have this. When we touch, and that's my dog, sorry for the noise. Buster, hello. Now we are going to increase when we touch 2 times. When we touch the 3rd time, it will modify this by 400. Then when we touch 4 times, we are going to modify this by 250. Then for the 5th time we are going to increase the 140, and then when we touch this for the 7th time it will increase this to 100, and the final one that it will be like when we touch 9 times, maybe 9 times if we have, let's set it to 8 times, we will move this, okay, by 80, and it will be like really fast. So now we check what's happening with Crazy Panion. We try to refresh everything, and if not, again we modify. Okay, so check the blocks. What is happening? We create a variable that it's going to count every time we have collision with the borders. Okay, so and it's going to check the counter. So the counter, it is here when we touch. We will increase this variable in the downs enemy clock. So do it. We have 1, so speed continues normally. But when we have the second collision, it looks like quite slow. Okay. So maybe I'm going to reduce the size of this when we go down to 30% of the height. Check, the speed is modifying. Okay, now it's going to do that. Now when you have in 3, we are going to change the speed to 400. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so enemies are done. Okay, enemies are done. Well, just for now. Okay, and then what's next? Well, what's next? Let's reduce the size of this. So we added this kind of thing. Now we need to move our beautiful ship, and we can use for the ship, okay, an extra clock. Again, we're going to do it. So we are going to go and we are going to drag movements of the ship. We have the movements of the enemies in here. So what about if we add the movements of the... I am terrible organizing blocks, guys, okay, so please, I hope you can bear. I am sure you will do it better than me to organize your blocks. Now let's add here the movement of the ship. For that we're going to add a 3rd clock. So we go to clocks, we add 3rd clock, and we're going to disable the clock, and we're going to set it to something like 48. I guess that will be okay. So now 48, it's disabled, and clock will be activated when we touch second canvas. That is the one that it's a control canvas. So we're going to use this. We're going to use when we touch, okay, touch down the control canvas. We're going to move the ship right or left, okay. So now, but we are going to, the touchdown, it will help us to move this thing, and also it will provide a coordinates, because we have here, we have to divide the canvas in 2. From this part to this side, moving to the left. From this part to this part, to this side, move to the right. Okay, so how to do that? Well, basically, we're going to use here canvas. We're going to use the width of the canvas. Set canvas width to canvas width. Sorry. Canvas to control canvas, and we're going to check the width of the canvas right now. We're going to divide it by 2. Okay, so we need to check here a collision here, because we are going to use just 1 clock for the ship, we are going to drag the clock ship in here. Oh, we didn't rename this thing, so it's better to rename this thing. Sorry, rename, and we're going to call it ship clock. Well, pretty smart, right? So, and set it to 48. Okay, and then we are going to activate this clock every time we touch the canvas. So we go here, timer enable, when we touch the canvas equals to true. But there is another thing, we need to pass this touch coordinate in the x-axis. So to do that, we're going to create a variable, and this variable, it will be like x touch. So x touch, the x touch, it will be set at the beginning to 0, and then the ship clock enable, it will enable this thing, and we're going to set, before we activate the clock, the new variable to the x coordinate. Now in the clock, I added the clock or not? No, right? So when we have this, we are going to add the condition, and the ship, it's going to say, we are going to detect if we are touching. Okay, so basically, if we are touching, if our touch is less, okay, so touch, the coordinate, it is less than the half of the canvas, half, we're going to use here a division. We're going to divide this by 2, the width. So, and we're going to check that thing. We're going to divide this by 2. So we're going to check if this value is less, so that means that is in this side, from here to here. So, well, what we want to do? Well, we want to modify the current position of the ship. Current position of the ship plus the current position of the ship. Okay, so so we're going to increase this value, I plus ship plus, okay, and now because this is going in this side, it is moving to the left, so negative values, so let's keep it like -4 pixels every time the clock cycles. That's it. Else, that means that else, in this case, it is like if this value is bigger than this or more than this, so we are going to do the same but to the other side. So we set this to 4 because we're going to the right. Now let's see if this is happening or not. Also touch down, when we have touch up, when we just remove the finger from the clock, from the canvas to touch up. So maybe we can just disable this clock, the ship clock, to false, I guess. So now let's see what happens. We activate everything, and ship is moving a little slow. It depends on your device, because I have tested this in my tablets, in my son's tablet, and well, it moved a little bit faster. So well, we can increase this. Maybe instead of increasing this, I will change this to 24, and maybe it will be like better. Yes, -5, it will be fine, and 5, it will be fine. I guess it looks faster. So now we are ready with the ship. Ship is moving right now. So what else? I guess we're going to continue now with the beautiful bullet, I guess. There is another thing. When we touch these things, it's always good. It is always good to have some kind of vibration, right? Because that helps us feel like the control, because it is not like a real control. So that means, I guess that will be like really useful for us. Okay, so let's say that every time we touch down, we are going to use here a sound, and we are going to use vibrate. We can insert this here, and we are going to set it to 80. This is really useful when you are like playing. It helps you. You feel like the control. Obviously, you are not feeling this, but believe me, it's better. Okay, well, I have that. So then what's next? What if we set just for the moment this SP button, just to stop everything? So button 2, I guess that's the one. When we click this thing, enemy clock, oh sorry, let's duplicate this one. Sometimes let's duplicate this and let's call it enemy clock false when we touch this. It's like pause. Okay, so now to activate this, well, we can use just a simple condition. Sorry, it's not a pausing game, but if equals if enemy clock it is in off, okay, or is disabled, if disables equals to false, so set enemy to true, else set this thing, oh sorry, duplicate this. So in that case the button will control like pausing the game, stop. Yeah, because you know it's quite annoying. Well, we have this just temporary. Okay, now what's next? As I told you, we have this, and now we need space for the bullet. Now for the bullet, okay, sometimes it gets a little bit more complicated. The bullet, we're going to use the graphic. Okay, let's see, I think you have the bullets. Yes, you have bullet, but I also have another bullet that you can get from the resource folder, that it's bullet 1. It is smaller and thinner, so we have that thing. And then we go here for graphics, and we're going to need a new sprite, and we're going to call this sprite bullet. So we call it bullet, sprite, or SP, or whatever you want to call it. Now at the beginning is invisible, so set everything to invisible, and also its picture to bullet 1. Okay, perfect. Now what's next? We can change also the size of the bullet. Okay, so but I guess then we check it. Right now it is just interesting to see the movement. Let's pause this game. Oops. Now crazy panion, it's going to start again. Well, as I told you, we're going to move the bullet. So what we want, let me refresh the screen. use crazy panion. Okay, what we want is just to start like with this kind of bullet when we touch the button number 1. Okay, so button number 1, it will trigger everything. So when we touch this button, first we need to see, we need to make the bullet enable. Bullet, I'm using just this variable, enable. Also the heading, guys, we have to set the heading here in the designer if you want, and we want the bullet to go up, so you have to set the bullet to 90 degrees for the heading. So we just select the bullet and we set this to 9. That's it. Now the bullet, it will be like activate enable when we touch the button, yes. Then it will be visible, yes. And also we're going to change the position of the bullet. Okay, we're going to center the bullet based on the ship. Okay, to do that we're going to use bullet position of, set the position of the bullet, so the X position of the bullet, we are going to set it to, we're going to use here math to center, and we're going to center this based on the ship. Okay, so based on the ship, so we're going to use ship, the position of the ship X, divided by 2. But I mean, you have to use from this, so the current position of the ship plus this thing. Okay, now we center the bullet with this. Okay, now what's next? The Y position. We need to set the Y position of the ship. Okay, based on the Y position, I mean the bullet, so Y position based on the ship's Y position. We delete this and that's it. And we're almost done. So what's next? Well, we need to move now the bullet. So to move the bullet, we have to use a clock. So well, to use the clock, we can set speed. Okay, instead of using a clock, we can set a speed. So let's go here, and we are going to set the speed here. So instead of adding a clock for the bullet, I am adding using this speed thing. And we're going to set the speed to 14. Okay, so we set the speed to 14. So now let's see what's happening right now. The bullet, if you check, it is like moved because we changed the heading. So first let's uncheck the part that it says rotates. Then we're going to check the position and everything. So now let's see, let's wait a little bit. So now it's not like going from the ship. If I move this, yes, it's going from the ship, but not in that the way we want. Okay, so let's modify this thing. So we're going to use bullet X. So let's say that we want the current position of the ship. Did you check when we move to this part? We'll just drop this thing. Let's set it to the X first, just to see what's happening. Now it looks better. Now we just need to increase this based on the width, not the X position. And so down. Now it looks pretty cool. Let's pause this, friends. And yes, that looks almost like center. That's okay. The size of the bullet, it's okay. A little bit big, but well. So now bullet is moving. Now we need to go with the tricky part, the collision. So what happens when we have collision with the bullet? Well, another thing, the bullet stays there when we get to the edge. So we want to eliminate the bullet every time we have collision with the edge. So when we collide with the edge, we are going to do something here. When we have this collision with the edge, we are going to remove the bullet. But which edge? Well, the edge that is here. That it's, if you check here the information, it is the north, it is edge number 1. So if equal, if the edge it's equals to 1, that means that it's touching the north edge. So we want to also, that is another thing, I want to fire this, but I don't want to fire. Okay, so you can do you can disable the button when the bullet is flying. Okay, so when the bullet is flying, we're going to disable the button number 1. So we're going to set it here to false. That's it. Now when we collide, the first thing is we are going to activate the button again, true. Then we're going to make the bullet duplicate, and we're going to make it disable, and we're going to make it invisible. Okay, that's it. So if we fire, I cannot fire anymore, just have to wait until we have collision. And this is good because this is part of the game, so that makes the game more difficult, because you cannot fire and fire and fire. No, we're going to use just one bullet, and when we have collisions, we're going to let you fire again. Okay, so well, I guess for this tutorial we're going to finish with this part, the collision with enemies. Okay, so we're going to use the collision with enemies. So to do that, we're going to use something similar. If you check the tutorial about the chopper or helicopter, we have something about how to detect collisions with this kind of things. Okay, with this kind of components where you are handling like groups or lists of enemies. And well, for collisions, we're going to create here a new procedure, and we're going to call it collisions. How do we call it? Collision bullet. Collision with bullets. So when the enemies have collision with bullets, we're going to run this procedure. And as I told you, we have this counter enemy, okay, and we're going to use this. So we're going to check if, remember that at the beginning we have like 27, okay, so let's just do it. We have 27 enemies. So we're going to check this, okay? We're going to check if the number of enemies it is bigger than 0. If this is bigger than 0, okay, we are going to check now collisions in the group. If we have this, we are going to check collisions in the group, and for collisions in a group we're going to use for each, and then we are going to call this to enemy, and then we're going to call this as we need the variable for all the enemies in the list, super list component. Okay, first, what is the first thing? I need to check the collisions. Well, to check collisions we need to add an if block again. So we're going to just remove this, and we're going to check if we have collision, we go to any sprite blocks, and then we go for any image sprite, and then we go for image sprite colliding with. So well, the way to understand this block at the beginning was confusing for me. So if, okay, we use component as usual, enemy, and then we have this. That means that if any of the sprites is having a collision with, in this case with, it is the bullet. So we go to bullet and we drag until the top. You have the bullet, just the bullet itself, okay, just the name. So if the collision of any of these enemies is with bullet, okay, if this is true, if we have collision, okay, now we are going to add what we want to happen. Okay, so now let's just here, let me check if I have some in fire. I don't have them here. I need the sounds. Explosion. Well, the sound later. I'm going to import this, that it's explosion, because we're gonna use it. But well, the first thing that we want, okay, it is to make this enemy that is colliding with the bullet invisible. Okay, this is the first thing that we want, okay, to make the enemy invisible. So we're going to go here again to any image sprite, and we're going to go for the property visible. So for any enemy colliding, okay, we're going to set this to false, false. If we have collision with any enemy, I want you to disappear this enemy, and also I want you to make this enemy disabled, so not like that. And there is another thing, okay, that it took me a lot. Okay, I wanted to remove this current enemy from the list, okay, because if not, the list will be like always 27, 27, 27, 27. Okay, so let's try what's happening with this. Okay, so and we're going to insert this in bullet. Bullet, we go to bullet collision when the bullet is colliding with, and we're going to drag this procedure and we're going to use in here. Now check what happens. Now if I fire, it's disappearing all of them like a super bullet. Okay, but now let's check the counter. Oh sorry, the counter is in here. It's 27. It's not disappearing enemies. Okay, so it's not removing enemies from the list. How can you remove? How can you know which enemy are you touching from the list? Well, I was trying to make it with any, but any buttons, it doesn't have anything to help you. So here is where you use this. Okay, so we are going to use here colliding with, and we're going to create a new variable, and let's call it mysterious enemy. Now let's call it mysterious dead enemy. So which is the enemy that is dying? The mysterious dead enemy, and we're going to set it first to nothing. Then we're going to, every time we have collision, any collision with the enemies, or a bullet with enemies, we're going to set this to, we're going to set this variable to other. So the variable will catch this enemy that is colliding, so it will tell us, hey, it's this guy. So if we know who is this guy, we can remove this guy from a list. Well, anyway, there is another important thing. So the bullet, it has to disappear also. Okay, and it has to be disabled again. Okay, because if not, the bullet, it will destroy a line of enemies. So we're going to go to bullet, and I want you to immediately disappear the bullet when it has collisions. So let's make it visible and disable. Duplicate. The first thing is to make it disable, so to avoid more collisions. Then just to true, to false, and then this is to false as well. So that is what we want. Okay, so to make the bullet disable and invisible. So when we have this kind of collision, we want to make the bullet disable and invisible. And that's it. Okay, so we can try it in here right now. And yes, it disappears. I cannot see it anymore because it is not, it is like disabled. So every time we touch the button, button 1, sorry, where is button 1? Well, button 1, where are you? Button 1, where are you? Shift, control, canvas, control, bullet, edge reach, it's here. So when we click this, we want to make the bullet invisible and visible. I guess it's okay. I don't know why it's not like showing us this thing. Okay. So let's just fix that thing. Let me check. So maybe we need to I guess we need to move this part. Let me check with enemies. Let's see, why not put on one bullet enable. So let's see here. Sorry guys, sorry. So when we have collision, we disable the bullet, make it invisible, and that's it. And then maybe we need to set the button 1 enable. We need to enable the button, I guess. So let's do it like that. So let's see, maybe the button is like, yes, it's disabled. So we need to enable the button, because when we have collisions, maybe we disappear that thing. So any button, it's button 2, I'll make it enable. When we finish this, true. I guess that's okay. That is button 1, sorry. Now, obviously in this moment, no. Possible, do it. Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, because we have this thing when we have like collisions, we are disabling the button to avoid firing in again. Okay, so that's why. Okay, well, now what's next? As I told you, the list is not like removing this. Okay, so we have the 27 things here, even that they have been like destroyed, so we have to remove them. Well, to remove them, we're going to use here in list, we're going to remove, and we're going to look for this block that is remove. So we're going to remove from the list super enemies or super list component. We're going to remove the current enemy that it has been disappear or destroy or collide. So we're going to use the index. We don't know the index, but we have the index in list. Tell me the index of this thing, and we're going to pass this guy that is mysterious. Okay, and we're going to say, hey, this is the thing, and the list, it is this one. So, and it will remove. So now if we refresh this and we fire to this enemy, now check the list, the length of the list, it has to be 26. Yes, obviously right now we have to refresh everything to have a better to have all from the beginning. So let's refresh the screen, and in that case we are going to remove everything for the list, and this is going to help us because we can know when we don't have enemies. Okay, so we can run a procedure to start the game again or to increase the level or whatever you want. Okay, yes, that's okay. So now there is this thing. So I guess with the enemies, enemy counter, if get global counter enemies it's bigger than 0, well, we can go and go in here. So now what is next? So if we activate the game, we have this thing. Right now it doesn't have lots of sounds, but it is like disappearing these guys. And if we check, we have 24 enemies, and we're going to continue with this until we get to that thing. Let's pause the game. Then we are going to create something to restart the game. So well, to restart the game, obviously we need to I guess we need to create another procedure. So what if we create this procedure here, and let's call it next level. That is basically restarting the game. Okay, so basically that is the idea. Okay, I don't know if you can change maybe something to increase the variety or something. Okay, well, to start the level, so what's what we want? Okay, well, let's think about these conditions. So we empty the screen of enemies, so we don't have any enemies. Well, now we need to reset first all the variables. For example, variables like counter. We have this one, the bounce counter, the one that it was counting whenever we touch the bounce of the screen, and we are going to reset this. Okay, and we're going to set it to 0, or in this case I want to set it to 1. Why? Because if you remember, this is like the difficulty level. Check. So it is 1. Now when it gets, it will be 1, and when it touches the first time, it will be automatically in 2. Okay, so it will be like faster. Okay, well, not faster, but it will be starting with this kind of conditions faster. Okay, so that's why. And also we can set the speed, okay, of the clock. Now the original it was 1000, so now we are going to set the enemy's clock interval to now starting with 600, no, 700. That's it. We start with that. Now what's next? Well, also we need to disable this clock when we have this kind of collision timer enable, and we're going to set it to false. It's disable the clock, the enemy's clock, so it's not moving. And also we are going to empty the list, the super list. We're going to empty the list. I know it is empty right now, okay, because we have removed everything, but just to avoid errors or mistakes or anything, we are going to empty this list. Okay, so we're going to empty everything. So the other lists are empty. Okay, so we are going to empty the super list component to create an empty list. Then we're going to run the same procedures at the beginning that we were like making enemies and enemies again and everything. Okay, so we're going to go here to procedures. We're going to drag first, make enemies 1, and then we're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to have enemies 2, and we're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to call enemies 3, and then we're going to create again enemies super list, and that's it. Okay, so now we have this thing. And what else? We can just start like touching, and also we are going to set the game game over to true, because now the game it will be like in over. So now we're going to add here an else condition just on the top. Else, that means that if we have something less than 0, we're going to run next level. I'm not sure if it's gonna work. Okay, so let's set this. Let's fire. Sometimes it has some weird behaviors because of the enemies, I guess, because there are too many, and sometimes they get like there in the screen. Okay, so maybe just a little bug or something. Check, for example, that one, it is over there, and I don't like that part because sometimes it confuses App Inventor, but I guess it's because of that thing. So we have this enemy freeze over there, and then you have to continue. So what if we pause the game and we just kill them? And there is a problem over there, but as I told you, I couldn't find anything about that because it is like freezing but not removing the enemy, and it's a little bug. I think that it's because we are handling lots of sprites. I don't know. So now it is not activating because our it is like one, I guess. It's this one that it's in here, and it cannot be like removed. Okay, so that it's a problem over there. I know it is like disabled. Okay, so maybe we can just change that thing. I'm going to change just this one. Disable this block and just make it invisible. Maybe in that case it will work. So just let me but what happens if we run the procedure right now? We do it, and let's see if this thing is working. Well, not working, but this guy, it's alive again. Well, I know why. Because all the enemies were set to invisible, so we need to make them again visible. Well, to make them visible, we're going to create just a simple procedure, and this procedure we're going to call it reappear enemies. Appear enemies, and we're going to set these enemies procedure here for each. We're going to use for each enemy in the super list. For each enemy in the super list, we're going to set we're going to set these two image sprite enable. I mean to make them visible, so we're going to set them invisible, visible, any image visible, component to true, and that's it. We're going to reappear these enemies, and we're going to reappear these enemies when we create these enemies, when you just finish to create enemies. So we're going to appear them over there. So now if we just refresh the screen, and then we are ready, almost ready. So we just wait a little bit for everything. And also I was thinking about the enemy super list. It's in here. Yes, we have enemies over there, and then we start like making them like that. So let's start the game, and let's hope this works. If not, well, we try. No. This is just like a simple bug. I'm not sure why, guys. I don't know if it's like detecting collisions to collisions, get confused with something, but they are very close. You know, the game feels good, and we are going to add sounds and maybe an explosion to make it more attractive. I guess we're going to finish with the explosion stuff. If you check the speed, it is modifying. That's good. I am very good at this. Die, aliens. Yeah. No. Well, maybe we need to increase the speed of the going down stuff. Oh yes, that's a good idea. To change the level, and we can make it with a variable. I will show you maybe. I'm in the middle of a battle and you are like trying to watch an ad. Now it's not moving, it's not working the call. We're going to do it. Now we're going to check the list. It's in 0. Global enemies counter. It is in 0 right now, guys. And it is not going to call next level. The question is why? It's in 0. So maybe we set it to something different from 0. But anyway, if we call this, we stop the clock, and we again make the enemies, I guess. We have to wait again for this because it's loading again with the initial thing. And yes, now the idea is now to check why we are not having this So well, that's pretty much for almost this tutorial, that it's almost done. We need to check something else, that is the collision with the ship. So when we have collision with the ship, we want to move, we want to restart the game, because we are going to have just one life. Okay, just to make it simple and better. And now if we check again, this result is true, because this is equals to 0. This is not true. Global counter enemies. So you know what? We're going to use something extra. I know why. I know why. Now, this is yeah. So now, sorry guys, we can use another one. So we're going to check if the list empty. Is the list empty? If the list, which list? The global, so maybe we don't need the counter enemies. Okay, so well, let me check. So the super list components equals to true. So in this case, so but if the list is not empty, I want you to check collisions. Else, run the other thing. So let's try it again. Sorry for this. I know it's taking too much, but this is the way to learn. Well, I guess. Okay, by the way, thanks again for watching this video. That I don't know if someone is watching this video or will watch this video someday. Okay, anyway. So we have this thing, we have to wait for enemies. And we're going to check here if the list is not empty, the global super enemies list component is, we're going to create detect collisions. But if the list is empty, we're going to call the next level. So just let's kill some of these aliens. And let's pause the game. Just to make it easier. Oh, I'm very good. Because that button is very useful. You probably might be asking why you have to this kind of SP thing, because I was thinking about having a special button, a special bullet. You can make it with the same bullet, or we can make it with the other one, but well, that's for another tutorial. And then we go here, and we go here, and then just activate the game just in case. Oh yes, you die, alien. Oh. And yes, it's working now. We go to the next level. And we destroy this friend. and everything is starting to move. And it's changing the speed faster right now. And you know, when you go to the second level, so after you finish to creating everything, so let's activate the game automatically. So let's set this to true, and that's it. Okay, and that's it. Wow. Now, as I told you, we are going to add the explosion. So now, when we have collision, we want to use an explosion. Okay, so well, to do that, we are going to, I guess we're going to make a procedure for the explosion, and we're going to set it in here, just next to the collisions, because it is very connected with the collisions. And we're going to let me just pause the game. Oh yeah. And we're going to call this set explosion or place explosion or whatever. Anyway, we're going to use an explosion sprite. I was thinking something extra instead of using another sprite. No, that's okay. Don't pay attention to me. It's better. Well, we are going to need two things. Explosion sprite that we are going to set, and an explosion clock that is going to appear and disappear this just for some time. So we add the sprite, we just rename this to X Sprite. That's it. And we're going to set this to a picture, the picture that we just imported, that is explosion. The picture is quite big, so you probably want to set this almost as the sprites. So the sprites are I guess the value is 12 times 16, so we can set this to the explosion to 16 times 16. I like 16 times 16, and of course at the beginning explosion it has to be invisible. Okay, so we are going to disable and make it invisible. And that's it. Then we need the sensor for the explosion. We're going to call it explosion clock. Explosion clock. We're going to disable this, and we're going to show this explosion just for half a second, I guess. Maybe that's too much, but well, yeah. Also we need sound, but well, not the sound right now. Now, what is the first thing that we need to do? The first thing that we need to do in the explosion, it is to place this image, this explosion, and we're going to use this one just to move X and Y at the same time. And we're going to change the graphic to make it visible. Visible. Where is visible? Visible. So we're going to make it visible, and we're going to enable the graphic or the sprite. Enable invisible. We're going to set these values to true. Control C, Control V, and we're going to set it to true. Now we're going to check the X and Y. So the X and Y, we're going to modify this. So we're going to do it based on two things. Okay, so we're going to use two slots from here, from the left corner of your procedure. We drag this, and we're going to call X and Y, because we're going to use these variables, because we are going to use the explosions not only with the enemies. Okay, so now let me try to refresh Crazy Panion, and then we go here. Now we're going to change this, okay, and we're going to use the position. the position in X plus 2. We're going to adjust this thing, okay? So, and the Y position. So, well, we need to set these positions, okay, of course. So now, we're going to make these things enable every time we call this procedure, okay? So now, we're going to call this procedure when we have collision or bomb, we have this kind of thing, okay? So we're going to put it right below Sprite visible. We're going to change this EX. It will be the position in the X of the current sprite that has been hit. We go to any component, any image sprite, and then we go for X position and Y position. X position, we duplicate this one and we call it Y position, and then we just drag enemy for component, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and X and Y, and then we just check if this thing it's quite working or not. If this is not refreshing, you know, companion, it is like losing connection. Well, we have that, and there is another place. I will restart this just to show you. But what if we have collision with the edge? Remember the edge? But we want to show also an explosion, okay, when we get to the edge. So, and you can set these values and then we can just modify them. So just let's find where we have this edge block or blocks. Shift, clock, control, canvas, control, touchdown, shift, control, where are you? Yes, when we get the bullet to the edge, so we want to refresh to call the explosion procedure. So we're going to call the explosion procedure, okay, and check. We're going to add it in here, so maybe here, and then we're going to set it to, you can use these values, then you just adjust the values. Sorry, we're going to increase the position or reduce the position. So the bullet, so where the bullet is, in this case is the bullet, remember that it's colliding, bullet X and Y plus, let's say -5, and then the Y in 0 because it's at the top of the screen, that's why. And then you say, hey, why you add a clock if you are not using the clock? Well, that's a good question. It's because I want this image just to be shown just for some time. So for example, if we have the clock for explosion, we have 500. So we're going to enable the clock, okay, to show this thing and then to be disabled. So we're going to use here clock, enemy clock. Let me check. So we are going to modify this thing, okay, so to place the explosion, so we go here, explosion clock, and we're going to use this explosion clock. So when we have the explosion clock, we are going to well, we are going to check what it's going to happen. So let's say that we are going to enable the explosion clock. Here we have to enable the explosion clock, sorry. So we are going to do it in here. Let's just drag it from here. We duplicate one enemy clock. We say explosion clock enable to true. We're going to enable the clock. And when the clock runs, when finish this cycle, okay, it will disappear everything. It will disappear this and make it disable, false, false, and it will turn off itself to false. So now let's see what's happening. Yes, we have the explosion over there, or the illusion of the explosion, and that's it. Pretty interesting, right? Then if we go to the edge, we have explosion, but in that case it's not disappearing. Well, we need to fix that. When we have this thing, where is the clock, edge reach, cold explosion, and then enable this clock, that it will disappear this frame. Enable clock, set timer enable, explosion clock to true, and this will hopefully disappear that. So now let's go to the edge. Let me check if I can shoot the edge. Oh, come on, I don't want to kill you guys. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, freeze over there. And that's it. Then you can add just the explosion, the sound of this explosion, and that's it. Well, I guess that's almost all for this tutorial. Okay, I guess for the next, well, maybe we can add something about the difficulty, okay, when we pass to the next level, and we're going to check the collision just to restart the game. That is not pretty difficult. Okay, so you just collide with the ship and you just have to set everything again, to reload everything again. Okay, so well, I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. Okay, if you have anything, any comment or whatever, okay, just please let me know, and I will share this project with you. Okay, so just let me save this thing and I will share this AIA with you. Okay, I hope this is useful for you. My name is Eduardo. Okay, thanks for watching this video. So I will just export as I showed you this thing. Okay, and if you have any ideas about tutorials or anything, just please let me know them. Okay, so and I will share this file. Okay, so check the description. I will share it there. Okay, thanks for watching, friends. Goodbye.